bear with us. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a decision on these applications. And I'll start out by introducing the Committee of Adjustment. I'm Mr. Robertson, and we've got Mr. Strangway, Ms. Richardson, Ms. Archer, and Mr. Erickson. And we have staff here in person. We have our Manager of Planning, Ms. Berry. We have Ms. Evans, Planner 2, Ms. Peck, Planner 2, and Mr. Lahaye, who is our Secretary-Treasurer, and Ms. Crockford, who is our Recording Secretary. And I'm advised that remotely we have both Mr. McKinnon, the Plans Examiner, Building and Septic Division, and Suzanne Murchison, our Chief Building Official. So welcome, everyone. All right. Moving right along to the agenda. Now, I've got a couple of things I want to do here, so bear with me. I would like to move up, and as discussed at a previous meeting when we had members of the public here, rather than have them having to sit around and be bored by us forever. So I want to move up D20-2023-027. That's 341 Forest Harbor Trail, Geographic Township of Earlham. And I also want to move up file number D20-2023-031, and that's 145 William Street North, Geographic Town of Lindsay. And we'll move up, last but not least, file number D20-2023-032, and that's 65 Lakewood Crescent, Geographic Village of Bobcaygeon. And before I proceed any further with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Berry, the Manager of Planning, to speak to D20-2023-024, that is 75 McGill Drive, Geographic Township of Manvers. Ms. Berry, if you would, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. So this matter is referenced as one of the new minor variance applications under Section 3.1. After we issued the notice of the public meeting to the surrounding property owners and to the agencies as required under the Act, the applicant and our planning team continued corresponding about the nature of the application, and at this time, the application is still subject to ongoing discussion to refine the proposal further. So in our opinion, it would be best serving this committee, the public, the applicant, of course, that we defer the item from the agenda entirely, as opposed to deferring as a recommendation for the actual application. We just ask that the committee consider deferring the matter, and we will bring it back to a subsequent meeting. If the proposal changes insofar as what initially was advertised, if the nature of the application changes to a degree that warrants recirculation, we will do that to notify the public of the next meeting that it would be scheduled for.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions of the manager? All right, being none, then I'm looking to get a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Mr. Strangwaite, Ms. Richardson, any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? All right, being none. The minutes of the last meeting, any comments or questions with respect to those minutes prior to my asking for a motion? Being none, can I get a motion? Ms. Archer? Mr. Erickson? No further comments or questions? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. For the benefit of everyone that's here and remotely as well, the committee will hear comments, gather information, and may ask questions to clarify statements made. The committee may ask and answer questions or redirect questions to the appropriate person. Please note that any information or comments given to the committee during this meeting, they are considered evidence. We will first hear from staff and then the applicant or his or her agent. We will then hear from any person in support of or from those who have questions, concerns, or are opposed to the application. Finally, the applicant or his or her agent will have an opportunity to respond to any of the statements made to the committee. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and I will ask you to approach the podium. Or if you're on virtual, I will, the same thing, please state your name when you come on the screen. We will afford you 10 minutes to make your presentation. Most people are well within those parameters. In fact, I don't think anyone has ever taken that kind of time. However, we offer you that time, and if you find you just cannot get your information in those 10 minutes, then I will ask the committee to perhaps afford you 2 or 3 more minutes. So just if you wish to speak. All right. Thanking you for that. And we're dealing with file number D20-2023-027. This is 341 Forest Harbor Trail, Geographic Township of Earlham, and we have Miss Evans. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned residential type 1 under the Township of Verulam zoning bylaw. The subject property is located in a residential neighborhood on the western shore of Pigeon Lake. The residential lots are relatively uniform in size, consist of a mixture of 1- and 2-story single detached dwellings, and the subject property contains a single detached dwelling with attached garage that was constructed in 1979 according to Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, as well as covered patio space and a shed which is to be removed. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a residential addition to the rear and side of the dwelling, which will add living space to the living area, as well as space to the attached garage. Also, an addition to the front of the dwelling will add a new enclosed entranceway. The proposed additions are shown in yellow, with the new entranceway being here, and the addition to the living space and attached garage here. The red lines on the sketch represent the setback that requires relief. Section 8.2G of the bylaw requires a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. The proposed setback is 1.67 meters. The drawings here show the additions, again outlined in yellow. The proposed 1-story residential addition will increase the size of the main bedroom and garage, as well as add a new enclosed entranceway. And this proposal will add living space, storage space, and improve accessibility. The photo on the left was taken from the end of the driveway looking towards the dwelling. The proposed addition is to be added to the right of the dwelling in this photo, and the new entrance would be located just beyond this tree on the lawn here. Just on the other side of this tree would be the new entranceway. The photo on the right was taken at the shorter side of the property that abuts the street, and it illustrates the extensive front yard. This photo is a closer view of the area where the proposed addition that requires relief from the rear yard setback would be located. This neighborhood has a unique feature where properties abut large open spaces that you can see on this aerial photo here outlined in blue, with the subject property outlined in orange. The photo on the left was taken in the rear yard where the addition is proposed, looking west towards the neighboring property, separated again by this open space. And the photo on the far right was taken looking south again towards that open space. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses are permitted within the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. Under the zoning bylaw, the rear lot line is defined as the lot line opposite the front lot line. And for a corner lot, the front lot line is the shorter lot line abutting the street. As this property is a corner lot, the front lot line is the east property boundary, making the west property boundary the rear lot line. So this is the shorter side of Forest Harbor Trail, making this the front yard, which makes this the opposite property line, the rear lot line. So even though the house faces this way, this, as defined by the zoning bylaw, is the rear lot line and therefore the rear yard. The purpose of the minimum rear yard setback is to reduce land use and privacy conflicts between abutting properties, address massing impacts, and to provide sufficient rear yard amenity space. The proposed addition to the west and south sections of the dwelling abut this open space that is next to the property, reducing any privacy or massing impacts between neighboring properties. Additionally, the proposed 1.6 meter rear yard setback will still allow for access between yards and room for any required maintenance to that side of the dwelling. Though the zoning bylaw defines the western yard of the property as the rear yard, due to the configuration of the dwelling on this corner lot, the western yard really functions more as an interior side yard. And there may be limited amenity space in the area that the zoning bylaw defines as the rear yard. There's plenty of amenity space provided in the southeast and north areas of the dwelling. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Are there questions upon it? All right, being none, is the applicant here or online? Does the applicant, yes, sir, do you wish to speak to the application? All right, well, I won't ask you to come up unless there's questions. Are there any questions? No? All right, thank you for that. All right. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of, or here wishing to speak in support of this application, Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Mr. Strangway?
As recommended by staff.
All right, do I have a seconder? Ms. Archer? Any further comments or questions on the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. All right, we're now dealing with file number D20-2023-031, and this is 145 William Street North, Geographic Township of Lindsay. Ms. Peck, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located north of the intersection of William Street North and Regent Street in the town of Lindsay. This property has frontage on William Street North. However, vehicle access currently takes place via a privately owned and maintained laneway located at the lot's rear. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a detached accessory structure, being a garage, with a height greater than permitted by the bylaw. Okay, so image number 1 above is a view of the property's front, taken from William Street. And image number 2 shows the private laneway at the property's rear. Oh, pardon me. Image number 1 is showing the laneway, and image number 2 is showing the property's front. The subject property currently contains a 2-story single detached dwelling, an in-ground pool, and an unenclosed shade structure. So on the image here, you can see the image on the right illustrates the existing pool and accessory structure, and the image on the left is taken from the wraparound porch and is intended to illustrate the property's large side yard setback, which is the proposed location for the garage. The property is designated residential low density within the Town of Lindsay official plan. This designation permits low-density residential uses, including a single detached dwelling and accessory buildings and structures. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. Therefore, the variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The subject property is zoned residential type 2, that's R2 zone, and a single detached dwelling and accessory uses and buildings are permitted within this zone category. Section 5.2C of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum accessory building height of 5 meters, and a height of 5.84 meters is proposed for the garage. The bylaw limits the height of an accessory building or structure to protect the privacy, ventilation, and daylighting of neighboring lots, and to ensure the building remains subordinate in size and scale as well as use compared to the lot's primary structure and primary use. In order to protect the privacy and daylighting of the abutting dwelling, the proposed garage maintains the minimum side yard setback for an accessory building being 1.2 meters. The bylaw permits a maximum height of 10 meters and a minimum side yard setback of 1.2 meters for an accessory structure with an upper level additional residential unit, or ARU. So in other words, if this proposed garage is in the future renovated into an ARU, its height and side yard setback would still comply with the zone provisions. Therefore, the variance is considered to maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The subject property is connected to municipal water and sewage services and fronts onto a municipally assumed street, making it an ideal candidate as an ARU. The owner would like the design of the garage to accommodate a additional living space in the future if an ARU renovation is proposed. Therefore, this intent is reflected in the building's fenestration choice on the upper level, which includes a Juliet balcony at the garage's rear. And this design choice allows for the addition of an upper level deck if the building is converted into an ARU in the future. The image above illustrates what the proposed garage may look like on the site as viewed from the front and rear yards. A new driveway off of William Street North is proposed and will provide access to the front of the garage. If the proposed entrance is approved, the new driveway will reduce the owner's reliance on the existing rear laneway, which is currently privately owned and maintained. A 1.2 meter side yard setback is considered appropriate given the proposed garage abuts a north-facing wall of the neighbor's dwelling. This side of the neighbor's house naturally receives less daylight due to the sun path and existing vegetation, as well as the limited amount of windows along this facade. These last images will show a perspective of the proposed garage and the general daily sun path, which is expected to cast shadows onto the subject property opposed to the neighbor's lot. Based on this review, the variance is considered desirable and appropriate for the development or use of the land, building, and structure. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way with respect to access, drainage, streetscape, and maintenance. No comments, concerns, or objections were received from members of the public or circulated agencies. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. Are there questions of the planner? Yes, go ahead, Ms. Archer.
Just a quick question, I think. When you're taking into consideration the garage being partially in the front yard, is the deck included in the front yard? Like it's going to be the same as the deck, but it's going to be in front of the house is my question.
Through the chair, the deck is considered a continuation of the building, so it is in line. So it isn't, in this case, it would be located in the interior side yard rather than the front yard.
To the planner, just for background, does 145 William Street North have an easement over the private driveway? And if there is one, will that be extinguished if this is approved?
Ms. Beck, go ahead.
Through the chair, it's, to my knowledge, and based on the legal description of the property, there isn't an easement registered to this property. The proposed driveway at the front will eliminate the need to use the rear laneway, so it will improve access to the site off of an assumed public street.
Actually, a good question, though, from Mr. Erickson, because I think you said it was a private laneway?
Yes, it's a privately owned.
Is it the applicant that owns it, or is it someone else?
It is another property owner. It's not the applicant that owns it,
Right.
to my knowledge.
All right, thank you. Ms. Richardson, I see your hand.
Through you, I'm just wondering, will the applicant require getting an entrance permit? it's not noted in the report that he will.
Through the chair, yes, when a driveway like this is proposed, they would require an entrance permit. That's something that they would apply for through the building permit process.
Okay, any further questions? Is the applicant present? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Yes, sir. Would you come up to the podium, sir, for us, please? Could you state your name for us?
Name is Hunter Sidsworth.
All right, now, it's on. Go ahead, sir. I was just wondering if the mic was on, but it is, so go ahead.
I'm just stating that I have been working hand in glove with this project since January 1st. I've went back and forth with the division. I am here. I cannot say that I am representing the applicant, but the applicant is my mother. I have been helping her throughout the process with building the garage. I am here in order to answer any committee members' questions, if there are any, and I do have enough knowledge if there are any questions, and I'd just like to thank the committee for allowing me to be here.
Well, and thank you for coming. Other questions? I saw some hands, did I not? Oh, all right, guess I didn't. All right, thank you for that, sir. I thought I saw some hands there, or I wouldn't have had you come up, so thank you for that. All right. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application, and I'm including those online if there are any as well when I say that. Being none, committee. Mr. Richardson. All right. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. The application is approved, sir. All right. Moving right along, we're now dealing with file number D20-2023-032. And this is 65 Lakewood Crescent, geographic village of Bobcaygeon. Go ahead, Ms. Evans.
Thank you. The subject property is designated urban settlement area under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and shoreline under the Victoria County official plan. An amendment to the application summary in the report, page 2, is required, as it does say that the property is designated urban under the Victoria County official plan. It is designated shoreline under the Victoria County official plan. It is zoned urban residential type 1 under the Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw. The subject property is located in a residential neighborhood on the western shore of Pigeon Lake. The residential built form in the area is comprised of 1- and 2-story single detached dwellings of varying ages. The subject property is irregular in shape, has frontage on the water, and is heavily vegetated. It contains a single detached dwelling, a detached garage, and a boathouse. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of an in-ground pool. Relief is required from the minimum water setback. Section 5.2J of the bylaw requires a minimum water setback of 20 meters. The proposed setback is 12.19 meters. The pool is to be approximately 14.6 square meters in size and is proposed north of the existing dwelling, the approximate location outlined here in yellow. The property is heavily vegetated, providing privacy screening for the pool, and the pool will enhance the outdoor recreational opportunities on the property. Speaking to the property owner when on site, they did say that they plan to age in place, and the pool will allow them to continue to enjoy a water feature on the property as an alternative to accessing the lake. Within the shoreline designation of the Victoria County Official Plan, or VCOP, permitted residential uses consist of single detached dwellings with either seasonal or permanent occupancy, as well as buildings and structures accessory to residential uses. The VCOP states that all accessory buildings or structures within the water setback shall provide as much visual vista of the water body as is reasonably possible. The in-ground pool will not detract from views of the water from the property. Performance and siting criteria is implemented through the zoning bylaw. This photo shows the approximate location of the pool again, with the setback from the water in red that requires relief. The intent of the minimum water setback is to provide sufficient space to establish vegetation to improve water body health and to provide sufficient space for the infiltration of stormwater runoff. As you can see on the air photo, the subject property has an irregular shoreline, and as such, the distance between the proposed pool and the shoreline changes depending on where along the shoreline that measurement is taken from. Zooming in a bit on the sketch here, when measured from the portion of the pool to the portion of the shoreline in yellow here, the setback is approximately 21.3 meters, which complies with the required water setback. However, as that shoreline recedes, the corner of the pool here does not comply with the required water setback. The existing shoreline conditions are not anticipated to change due to the location of the proposed pool. As the subject property is 2 lots, being lots 48 and 49 on Registrar's Compiled Plan 564, confirmation is required that the land is a single conveyable lot of record. Otherwise, there could be zoning issues such as the construction of the pool could result in a non-compliance with the zoning bylaw, as the pool could be situated on the lot boundary, for example, or it could have a deficient side yard setback. So condition 3 has been added to the report to require this confirmation. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and a permit has already been granted by Kawartha Region Conservation Authority. No comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Questions of the planner? Being none. Is the applicant here? Does the applicant, yes, sir, do you wish to speak to the application? Are there any questions of the applicant? All right, being none. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Ms. Archer and Ms. Richardson. All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion? All right, being none, you've got that. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Application is approved, sir. We're now dealing with file number D20-2023-022, and this is 26 Hardwood Street, Geographic Township of Fenelon. Ms. Peck, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is a residential lot located in an established waterfront community along the southwest shores of Balsam Lake. The applicant is looking to renovate an existing accessory structure, being a boathouse, to recognize the existing non-complying side yard setback. The north and south of the subject property are similarly sized residential waterfront lots, and west of the property on the other side of Hardwood Street is a large agricultural property. The subject property currently contains a 1-story single detached dwelling and 3 detached accessory structures, including a detached garage, a shed, and a boathouse. Photo number 1 was taken at the top of the driveway looking east towards the lake. You can see the existing garage in the front yard and the primary dwelling in the distance here. Photo number 2 is taken at the lot's midpoint, showing the existing cottage and a small shed in front. For photo number 3 above, I was standing near the property's southwest corner looking east. In this image, you can see the relationship between the existing cottage and the boathouse. The existing boathouse is light blue in color, and not to be confused with the taller structure in behind with the glass railing, which actually represents the neighboring boathouse. So this is the boathouse here. This application pertains to the existing boathouse, which is currently 42.58 square meters in size. This structure is located a minimum distance of 0.41 meters from the interior side lot line. Based on data from the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, the boathouse was constructed around 1956 and predates the first Fenland zoning bylaw dated January 25th, 1979. Therefore, the location of the structure may be considered legal non-complying. The height of the existing boathouse is 2.51 meters and is presently too low to store the owner's boat. The purpose of the application is to renovate the existing boathouse and increase its height to 3.8 meters. This height remains well within the permitted height maximum under the bylaw, which is 4.5 meters for a boathouse. The applicant is looking to recognize the existing non-complying side yard setback. The boathouse will remain 1 story in height, and no interior or exterior habitable space is proposed. The ground floor area of the 1 bay boathouse will remain the same, and the taller roof will accommodate the height of the owner's boat. Based on this evaluation, the variance is considered appropriate for the use of the land and structure. Here is a site plan photo. So that is the existing boathouse, and it's this corner here that has the minimum setback of 0.41 meters. The images above illustrate what the proposed renovation may look like on site. The boathouse's flat roof line will be changed to a gable-style roof. This change will improve water runoff and drainage towards Balsam Lake and the building's rear. The property is designated waterfront in the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. Residential uses and accessory buildings and uses are permitted under this designation. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. Therefore, the variance is considered to maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. This slide shows the building's proposed elevations. As you can see, the proposed renovation will update the structure's age siding and will incorporate fenestration details on the south side to increase visual interest. High-quality materials such as stone skirting will be used. The subject property is zoned rural residential type 3. A single detached dwelling and accessory uses and buildings are permitted under this zone category. Zoning and relief is required when any extension or alteration is proposed to an existing building or structure that is closer to a lot line than required. Section 3.1.2.2 of the bylaw requires a minimum side yard setback of 1.2 meters. However, a side yard setback of 0.41 meters exists. A bylaw may establish a minimum side yard setback for accessory structures to provide room for building maintenance and to reduce water runoff on the neighboring lot. The new roof line should assist with improved water drainage, and a 0.21 height encroachment is not anticipated to change the character of the shoreline or the building's relationship between adjacent structures. Based on this review, the variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way with respect to access, drainage, streetscaping, and maintenance. The subject property is regulated by Kawartha Region Conservation Authority, the shoreline in particular, and a conservation authority permit is required, and that pertains to the potential risk for flooding being located so close to the shoreline. The building division did indicate that the structure's spatial separation may be an issue. However, this can be dealt with at the building permit stage. What this means is that the wall closest to the interior lot line may need to be constructed with a fire resistance rating. No other comments, concerns, objections were received by members of the public or circulated agencies. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Now, I'm going to assume, and just for the benefit of the committee, that you're content with the permit regarding Fourth of Conservation being addressed through the building permit process?
Yes, exactly.
Questions of the planner? All right. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
Yes, my name is Tom Sprague from Sprague and Company Architects.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
You hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Yes. I was just going to comment that I think it's been presented very well. It's a fairly simple application. Basically, want to increase the existing wall a little to give more extra height. So I think the explanation that was made is very, very clear. And in my opinion, it's certainly minor and a very applicable, appropriate development.
All right, and thank you for that, sir, and thank you for your kind words. Our planners do an excellent job. They really do.
Yes.
Are there any questions of the applicant? All right, being none. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none? Anyway.
As recommended by staff.
Do I have a seconder, Mr. Erickson? All right. Any further comments or questions related to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. Application is approved, sir. Forgot the button. We're now dealing with file number D20-2023-023, and this is 1013 Eldon Road, Geographic Township of Mariposa. Ms. Peck, you're on again.
Thank you. The subject property is located in the Oakwood Hamlet settlement area and it's located approximately 300 meters from the intersection of Eldon Road and Highway 7. The property abuts similar-sized residential lots to the north and south, and a large agricultural property to the west. There are institutional uses located along the east side of Eldon Road, including the Oakwood Arena and the former Mariposa Township Road Department. The applicant is looking to facilitate the construction of a detached accessory structure, being a garage, and to permit the continued use of a C-can storage container. Photo number 1 above is taken from the front of the property, looking west down the driveway. As you can see, the property is a large residential lot with a primary building being a large farmhouse. This lot was recently created by consent, where a surplus farm dwelling was severed from the retained agricultural lands. Image number 2 below, you can see the retained farmland and agricultural buildings located at the property's rear. The subject property currently contains a 2-story farmhouse constructed around 1900. There are also 3 accessory structures currently on the property, including 2 small sheds and a C-can storage container. The existing dwelling does not contain an attached garage, and the owner is looking to construct a 3-bay, 2-story garage to store vehicles, yard equipment, and personal items. The owner is a collector of old gas pump memorabilia, and keeping the existing C-can storage container will provide a secure place for him to store his treasures. The subject property's size and location, being located along an improved public street, makes it an ideal candidate for an additional residential unit, an ARU. Although upper-level living space is not currently proposed, the owner would like the design of the garage to accommodate a potential ARU conversion in the future, if desired. The garage dormers and upper-level deck are used to encourage a rural residential aesthetic for a more cohesive neighborhood style and may be converted into additional living space in the future if an ARU is proposed. Based on this review, the variance is considered appropriate for the development or use of the land, building, and structure. The subject property is designated Hamlet Settlement within the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. Residential uses as well as accessory buildings and structures are permitted under this designation. Performance and setting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. Therefore, the variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The images above illustrate what the proposed garage may look like on site, with the yellow dashed line kind of showing the general footprint of the garage. The subject property is zoned Hamlet Residential, Exception 11. A single detached dwelling and accessory uses and buildings are permitted within this zone category. The proposal complies with all provisions of the bylaw except for the maximum height requirement for an accessory building and the number of permitted detached accessory structures. Section 3.1.3.3 of the bylaw permits a maximum of 2 accessory structures on a residential lot. As a result of the application, the proposed garage and C-can storage container will be the 3rd and 4th accessory buildings on the property. A bylaw may limit the number of accessory buildings on a lot to encourage a cohesive built form and reduce the likelihood of a scattered appearance. The existing and proposed accessory buildings are located in the rear yard and appear logically placed. The view of the existing shed and storage container will be completely or partially shielded by the existing farmhouse or the proposed garage when viewed from the street. Although the total number of accessory buildings exceeds the permitted number under the bylaw, the accessory building lot coverage remains well within the recommended requirements. Section 3.1.3.2 permits a maximum accessory building height of 5 meters. A garage height of 5.18 meters is proposed. A bylaw may limit the height of an accessory building or structure to protect privacy, view, and daylight of neighboring lots, and to ensure the building remains subordinate in size and scale compared to its primary use. The proposed garage is set back well beyond the minimum side yard setback of 2 meters, and the height encroachment of 0.18 meters is not anticipated to change the character of the neighborhood or the building's relationship between adjacent structures. Garage will remain subordinate in size and scale compared to the existing farmhouse. The bylaw prohibits human habitation in a detached accessory structure unless it's an ARU. To ensure the upper level deck functions as an aesthetic feature rather than used for human habitation, and contrary to the elevations illustrated in Appendix D and shown above, no exterior doorway access to the upper level deck is proposed. And you will see that this is actually written in as a condition of the variance. Despite its lack in access, the owner believes that the deck creates a cohesive built form by integrating architectural elements from the existing house into the design of the proposed accessory structure. Based on my review, the variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way with respect to access, drainage, or streetscaping or maintenance. No comments, concerns, or objections were received by members of the public or circulated agencies. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. I do remember the days when we actually added conditions to prevent human habitation in garages and boathouses. What did we know? Mr. Strangway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I remember those days as well. Just a quick question. We've had, I believe this is the 2nd or 3rd application for a garage where there's a potential for an ARU at a future time. Do they have to come back to the city for approval for an ARU, or by us approving this, does this allow someone to go ahead and put it in an ARU without any further permits?
Through the chair, this application is only seeking relief from the height of the structure and for the number of accessory buildings. Under the bylaw, if this was an ARU proposed as written, they actually wouldn't need the variance for height, because under the bylaw, an ARU is permitted to have a height of up to 10 meters when it's an upper level to a garage. The primary reason I believe that you're seeing a lot of garages that are looking for height, they're not proposing an ARU, but they want the flexibility in the future for conversion, is they don't want they're not going to use it for living space, they're using it for storage. But if down the road they sell the property, they want it to be kind of a sellable feature that if someone had the need, they could convert this into living space, and it would require a application through the building permit process. They would have to register it as an ARU and connect it to services to include a bathroom and a kitchen.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything further from committee? Ms. Archer?
Through you, please, to Ms. Peck. In appendixes B and C, it looks like the access to the farm buildings in behind is going to be disappearing because this garage is being built on the laneway. Well, how is the farm accessing? Like, they don't have an easement or anything?
Through the chair. So this was actually dealt with through the consent itself. It was a condition of the consent that the driveway access be rerouted for the farm. So that access is no longer functioning for that back agricultural lands.
Further questions of the planner? All right. Excuse me. Being none, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? All right. Doesn't look like we have an applicant. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of the application? In support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? All right, committee, where are we? Ms. Richardson. Right.
As recommended by staff.
Do I have a seconder? Ms. Archer. Any further comments or questions in relation to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. I again would be remiss, ladies, if I didn't say to you, honest to goodness, with the last gentleman that was on there, your presentations are excellent, and we do appreciate it. It makes our job a lot easier, I can tell you. So thank you very much, both of you. All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2023-028. It's 190 Sturgeon Glen Road, Geographic Township of Fenelon. Ms. Evans, go ahead, please.
Sorry, just bear with me here. Based on the pacing of the agenda, it would have been 44 King Street West in Omemee. Okay.
So we're dealing with then, yes, file number D20-2023-025. It's 44 King Street West, Village of Omemee, and thank you for getting me back on stream there.
Thank you. The subject property is designated urban settlement area under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and urban under the Victoria County official plan. It is zoned residential type 1, exception 8, floodplain under the Village of Omemee zoning bylaw. The subject property is located in a residential neighborhood at the center of the Village of Omemee. It abuts King Street West, Lane Street, and Mary Street West, and contains a single detached dwelling, which was constructed in 1983, a detached garage, and a shed. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the removal of an existing portion of the dwelling and its reconstruction on the same footprint. Relief is required from the minimum exterior side yard setback, and the setbacks requiring relief are shown in red on the sketch. Section 8.2.1.3C of the bylaw requires a minimum exterior side yard setback of 4.5 meters, The proposed setback at the north corner is 2.11 meters, and the proposed setback at the south corner is 2.08 meters. This portion of the dwelling that is to be removed and reconstructed on the same footprint can be seen here outlined in yellow. The portion of this dwelling to be removed and reconstructed is used as a home office. Approximately a year ago, the property owner noticed a significant slope in the floor as well as a gap between the flooring and the baseboard. And after some exploratory digging, it was discovered that there was actually no foundation or footings under this portion of the dwelling. It was constructed on 2x4 lumber, which has rotted, compromising the structural integrity of this portion of the dwelling. So the proposal is to reconstruct and continue to use this space as a home office. The photo on the left shows the dwelling as viewed from King Street, and the photo on the right shows a more complete view of the dwelling with the portion that is to be removed and replaced, again outlined in yellow. This photo shows the existing exterior side yard setback, shown approximately in red, which is to be maintained with the new construction. So no further encroachment is proposed than what exists today. The purpose of the required setback from an exterior lot line is to provide adequate spatial separation between a road allowance and an abutting use. The exterior lot line on the subject property abuts Lane Street, which is relatively narrow, and it is a short one-way street with a 40 km/h speed limit. Conflict between the residential and transportation use would be minimal due to the nature of this street. The manager of Roads Operations East confirmed that Public Works has no concerns with the proposal, and the area supervisor noted that there is currently adequate space for Public Works operations on the road. Within the urban designation under the Victoria County Official Plan, a broad range of residential uses are permitted, as well as buildings and structures accessory to residential uses, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies. A permit is required from Kawartha Region Conservation Authority, as KRCA has provided that the subject property is subject to potential flooding hazard due to the water level fluctuation of the Omimi Mill Pond. No comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Question to the planner? The only question I have is on page 3 of 8, right at the bottom, and I'm just asking for your opinion here. You didn't feel that there was a condition necessary with respect to the lot grading and drainage plan? I'm just wondering, it's been mentioned in the past that sometimes the building department likes a red flag when it comes to some of these issues. So I'm just, I'm curious about that.
Thank you. Yeah, there really isn't a trigger here for a condition to be placed on this minor variance, as in order for this proposal to be in compliance with the zoning bylaw, they would need to comply with that provision and do the lot grading and drainage plan, and that would happen at the building permit stage.
All right, thank you. I just feel a little bit nervous about those. I do, and because sometimes things get missed. However, that's fine. Any yes, Ms.
Please to the planner. In Appendix C, it looks like the deck at the rear is awfully close to the neighbors to the lot line. Is that no concern?
Through the chair, the applicant I did have that question as well when I was looking at the sketch originally, and she confirmed that that's just a mistake. So I'll point here. The deck actually is in line with the dwelling, so this portion is not deck. That was just a mistake on the sketch. I'll just show you the photo. I'll well, I don't have a good one at that angle, but you can kind of see how the deck here is in line with the dwelling, so that bump out does not actually exist.
Further questions of the planner? All right, being none. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Apparently not. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application, opposition to the application? Committee. Ms. Richardson. Archer. Further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. All right, we're now dealing with file number D20-2023-026. This is 2133 Little Britain Road, Geographic Township of Ops. Ms. Peck, go ahead.
Thank you. The subject property is located on the south of Highway 7, just outside the town of Lindsay, on the north side of Little Britain Road. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a Bob Mark New Holland dealership, a farm equipment supplier. The variance pertains to a parking reduction request from 433 parking spaces to 127 parking spaces. The property abuts commercial uses to the east, including an abattoir, the Race Toyota car dealership as well. South of the property, on the other side of Little Britain Road, are industrial uses, including an auctioneer, a crop implement supplier, and the city's fleet maintenance division. West of the subject property is a rural residential lot, and to the north is Highway 7. An existing Bob Mark New Holland dealership is located southwest of the intersection of Highway 7 and Little Britain Road, and that is the yellow dot there you can see above. Above are some images of the site as it exists today. Image number 1 illustrates the existing abattoir located east of the subject site. And image number 2 is a photo of the vacant lot viewed from the property's southwest corner. The proposal supplies a total of 127 parking spaces across 3 parking lots. One parking lot, consisting of 47 parking spaces, is conveniently located at the front of the property and will likely provide parking accommodation for employees and the visiting public. That's this one here. 2 additional parking lots containing a total of 80 parking spaces will likely be used for outdoor storage or the display of goods. These parking lots are deliberately located to the building's rear, away from the primary vehicle circulation, as well as away from loading decks and the fire route to improve site safety. That's these 2 here. The existing Bob Mark New Holland dealership at 2197 Little Britain Road is nearly 5 times smaller than the subject site, and it functions adequately with a reduced parking supply. They have approximately 13 parking spaces at this location. The on-site parking configuration is considered appropriate and will serve the proposed use without creating undue paved surfaces that create water runoff and erosion. Based on this review, the variance is considered appropriate for the development or use of the land, building, and structure. The property is designated highway commercial within the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. The highway commercial designation permits a broad range of commercial activities. Retail establishments that require large areas of outdoor storage or the display of goods, such as a farm implement dealership, is permitted within this designation. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. The variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The subject property is zoned highway commercial, exception 17. A farm implement sales and service dealership is a permitted use under this zone. Section 2.17.8 of the zoning bylaw requires 1 parking space for every 5 square meters of the building's net floor area. This totals to 433 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 127 parking spaces. A bylaw may require a minimum parking ratio based on the lot's specific use and building size to ensure that the parking provisions of all types are provided at a rate proportional to the business use and size, as well as the anticipated service population and demand. In this case, the proposed building is larger than a typical farm implement dealership that was conceptualized under the bylaw may be, as this building incorporates a large indoor display area for improved winter sales and the service, as well as the service repair shop. These additional areas do not create a service demand that necessitates a parking accommodation at the suggested ratio. The image above illustrates the building's interior uses. The blue areas here are offices and employee service spaces. The gray is parts and material storage as well as utility space. The red is the indoor display area I was mentioning, and the yellow is the service repair shop area. When calculating the required parking spaces for other commercial uses, the bylaw generally only considers building areas directly related to the specific permitted use. Unfortunately, this language is not used for a farm implement sales and service dealership, and therefore a larger building has the potential to overinflate the parking requirements. If the service repair shop, the area in yellow, and the indoor display area, the area in red, were excluded from the parking calculation, only 96 parking spaces would be required in total. Therefore, a total of 127 parking spaces is considered appropriate for the use of the building. Based on this review, the proposal maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way with respect to access, drainage, streetscaping, and maintenance. The application or the proposal was circulated to the Ministry of Transportation due to its proximity to Highway 7. MTO identified that the property is within the ministry's permit control area, and therefore the ministry approvals and permits are required prior to the construction of the building or structure and prior to the issuance of any municipal building permits or approvals. The applicant was aware of this requirement as well prior to submitting their application. No additional comments, concerns, or objections were received by members of the public or circulated agencies. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of the minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Questions of the planner? All right, being none. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Duguay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Ms. Peck for her presentation. The subject property has been granted official plan and zoning bylaw amendment approvals in 2020 to permit the new Bob Mark New Holland dealership. We also have, through the Committee of Adjustment, received severance approval to sever the abattoir building and lot from the former property, as well as associated vehicular and servicing easement. I have considered the staff report and I agree with its conclusions. Unfortunately, the parking ratio that seems to not specifically address farm implement dealerships, it's a parking ratio that's greater than parking that might otherwise be required for shopping centers. So the reduction being sought is in line with all the previous land use approvals that were granted by the City Council and by the Committee of Adjustment. Lastly, with respect to the Ministry of Transportation comments, I can advise that there is a pending site plan application filed with the municipality, and we are conversant with and acknowledge the MTO requirements vis-a-vis proximity to their highway corridor. I make myself available, Mr. Chairman, to answer questions should any need be answered. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time and presentation. Are there any questions of Mr. Duguay? Mrs. Archer.
This one, please, through you to Mr. Duguay. Is 24 months sufficient to complete this?
Mr. Chairman, the site plan application is is filed with the city. There really is no concerns in this regard. Construction is imminent, subject to, of course, this approval and the site plan approval and the committee of adjustment. So no concerns with respect to timing.
Thank you. Further questions of Mr. Duguay? All right, thank you for that, sir.
You're quite welcome.
Is anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? All right, being none, committee. Mr. Strangway. Mrs. Archer.
As recommended by staff.
All right, Mr. Strangway, seconded by Ms. Archer. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? Mr. Duguay, the application is approved. Okay, we're now dealing with file number D20-2023-028, and this is 190 Sturgeon Glen Road, Geographic Township of Fenelon. Ms. Evans, go ahead.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned rural residential type 3 under the Township of Fenelon zoning bylaw. The subject property is located in a residential neighborhood on the eastern shore of Sturgeon Lake. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1957 and a detached garage constructed in 1976. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the demolition and replacement of the dwelling, and the proposal also includes the demolition and replacement of the detached garage. The garage does not require relief from the zoning bylaw and is not the subject of the application. Relief is required from the minimum lot frontage as well as the minimum water setback. And just so it's easier to see, these are enlarged versions of sections of the sketch showing the required reliefs. Section 3.11 of the bylaw requires a minimum lot frontage of 12 meters, and the existing lot frontage is 9.45 meters. And section 13.2.1.3e of the bylaw requires a minimum water setback of 15 meters, and the proposed setback from the water to the attached deck that will be attached to the proposed dwelling is 12.31 meters. Over time, it can be expected that owners may redevelop their properties to achieve their highest and best use. The proposed dwelling is to be larger than the existing, providing additional living space for the property owners as well as family and friends. The photo on the left was taken after walking partially into the property, as the property is quite deep, and I am facing the existing dwelling straight on. The photo on the right shows the existing dwelling from more of a side perspective. Relief from the minimum water setback is required. Now, the proposed dwelling complies with the setback from the water. It is the proposed attached deck which requires relief. The photo on the left shows the water yard of the property, and the photo on the right is meant to illustrate the existing setback between the attached deck and the water. The existing attached deck has a deficient water setback, and no further encroachment is proposed with the new attached deck. The intent of the minimum water setback is to provide sufficient space to establish vegetation to improve water body health and to provide sufficient space for infiltration of stormwater runoff. In this case, the dwelling and attached deck have been established in their current location for some time, and as such, existing shoreline conditions are not anticipated to change, as the existing encroachment will not increase with the construction of the new dwelling and attached deck. Relief is also required from the minimum lot frontage. The photo on the left was taken at the edge of the road looking into the property with the dwelling and garage circled in red. The intent of the minimum lot frontage requirement is to ensure lots are large enough to accommodate development while ensuring there is adequate space for amenity uses, private services when they're required, and stormwater infiltration. Though the existing lot does not comply with the minimum lot frontage required by section 3.11, it does comply with the minimum lot area, and therefore the lot will accommodate development, amenity space, and infiltration. The minimum lot frontage also ensures that properties are wide enough to support a building envelope that could comply with the minimum side yard setbacks. The proposed dwelling complies with those minimum side yard setbacks required within the RR3 zone. The existing reduced frontage is consistent with the surrounding lot fabric. So in the air photo here, we have the subject property outlined in orange, and this just highlights surrounding properties in yellow that have similar frontages. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses are permitted within the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies. A permit is required from CORTH, the Region Conservation Authority, and KRCA has provided that the subject property is within the 120-meter buffer of both a provincially significant wetland and an unevaluated wetland. The subject property is also subject to potential flooding hazard due to the water level fluctuation on Sturgeon Lake, and therefore the permit is required by their office. No comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Ms. Archer, go ahead.
Through you, please, to Ms. Evans. I know it doesn't take too much to confuse me, but on page 3 of 8, the minor variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. We've dealt with the shoreline, but it goes into the height of the building rather than the minimum lot frontage. Is there a concern about height?
Through the chair, the proposed dwelling complies with the maximum height requirement in the RR3 zone. It is going up in height, so I just included that to kind of reflect the official plan policies surrounding the height of buildings on shoreline properties, but there is no concern with the proposed height.
Further questions of the planner? Being none. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
No, nothing to say. Thank you.
What is your name, ma'am, please?
Sonia?
Thank you. And any question, then the lady isn't going to speak, so any questions of the applicant? Well, an agreeable lot today. Very good, I'll tell you. All right. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? Being none. Committee, where are we? Ms. Richardson. As printed.
As recommended.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson. Any further comments or questions with relation to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2023-030, and this is 2252 Hillview Drive, Geographic Township of Members. Ms. Peck, you get the last one.
Thank you. The subject property is located in a residential subdivision approximately 6 kilometers north of the Bethany Hamlet settlement area. The property abuts residential uses to the north, west, and south, and the properties east of Hillview Drive are within the township of Cavan-Monaghan. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a detached accessory structure, being a garage, located closer to the front yard setback than permitted. Or closer to the front yard than permitted. So in this slide, this is taken from the north corner of the property, looking towards the existing house. As you can see in the aerial image on the left, the existing house is sited on an angle, meaning that the dwelling does not run parallel to the front lot line. A similar orientation is proposed for the garage, and it's also sited on an angle to create a cohesive visual appearance. The subject property is a large 1.04 acre residential lot that currently contains a one-story dwelling and 3 sheds. The existing dwelling does not contain an attached garage, and the owner's vehicles are currently being parked outside, subject to the elements. A 2-bay detached garage is proposed within the front yard and will provide opportunities for indoor storage of vehicles and personal items. This slide illustrates the existing mature vegetation along the north and south property lines, the interior lot lines, that will be shield view for neighboring lots towards the garage. The yellow box in the image on the left illustrates the approximate location of the proposed garage. While the garage's front yard setback is less than permitted under the bylaw, it is anticipated that sufficient space will remain to accommodate additional parking at the garage's front due to the structure's angled orientation and the curved driveway approach. The property is designated rural within the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. Residential uses and accessory buildings are permitted under this designation. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. Therefore, the variance is considered to maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The subject property is zoned limited service residential. A single detached dwelling and accessory uses and buildings are permitted in this zone category. Section 20.1B of the bylaw requires a front yard setback of 15 meters. A front yard setback of 7.7 meters is proposed. The intent of the minimum front yard setback is to ensure adequate spatial separation between the built form and the traveled portion of the street, and to maintain features such as sight lines and the character of the streetscape. There's adequate separation distance between the dwelling, the proposed garage, and between the garage and the traveled portion of the road. The garage will be physically separated and screened by a row of existing cedar trees planted at the front of the property, and sufficient driveway surface outside of the road right-of-way is available for additional parking. So the garage would be, you can kind of see the house in the distance here, but the garage will be about here. The image above illustrates what the proposed garage may look like on site. A 15-meter front yard setback is uncharacteristic in a residential zone category outside of Manvers and the Oak Ridges Moraine. For instance, the nearby geographic township of Mariposa requires a front yard setback of 7.5 meters for a similarly sized lot zoned LSR. Therefore, the variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way with respect to access, drainage, streetscaping, and maintenance. No comments, concerns, or objections were received by members of the public or circulated agencies. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Other questions of the planner? Ms. Archer?
Please to the planner. Accessory buildings are allowed in the front of the property in Manvers?
Through the chair, in this case, I believe so. I can double check the bylaw for you just for confirmation. Just indulge me a minute here. Okay, thank you for that time. So I did take a look at the bylaw, section 20.1B, under accessory building structures and uses, does direct that a garage may be erected in the front yard if it's a shoreline lot. So this was my misreading of the bylaw. This is not a shoreline lot. So if the committee is agreeable today, we can add relief for the location of the garage being in the front yard. Because of the circulation that was provided, the image was showing the notice that was circulated to the public and to the agencies did illustrate that the garage was in the front yard. So planning staff are satisfied that that does show the proposed location and that relief. But if it suits the committee, we can recirculate the application.
Sergeant?
That's fine, thank you. I think we could do that.
Which?
Go with it, with the amendment.
Let's hope say that. Yeah, I the need to recirculate, so, right. All right, anything further of the planner? Mr. Erickson? We have another question, Ms. Peck.
Through the chair, I was just going to point out on page 3 of 7 at the very bottom, it says detached garage is located in the front yard already characterized. Turning over to the next page, page 4, neighborhood streetscape as illustrated, and so on. So it mentions it already.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think we're content with. All right, and thank you for that. Anything further of the committee, from the committee? All right, being none. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Apparently not. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application, opposition to the application? Being none, committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway?
As recommended by staff.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on?
Sorry.
I don't think we were going to amend, were we?
Sorry to interject. I believe it would be the motion as amended with the front yard location.
Oh, that's a bit of a curveball for me. I didn't realize we were going to do that. So do you want to clarify that for us then?
So in the report, it would be the relief sought would be a second relief, relief number 2 for the location of the front yard. So it would be relief from section 20.1B II of the bylaw.
Are we clear on that? All right, Charlotte, thank you for that. Then you're okay with that? No? Yep, all right. All right, then it's motion as amended. Mr. Strangway, Mr. Erickson, you're good with that? All right. Are there any further comments or questions with respect to the amended motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. From staff under other business? Anything from committee members under other business? I'll tell you. All righty. No correspondence. The next meeting will be Thursday, May the 25th at 1 p.m. in Council Chambers, City Hall. And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, go Leafs, go! All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Yeah. Adjourn. Okay, Ms. Archer, Ms. Richardson. All right. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you.